Hi, everyone. Welcome to the workshop. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. Hey,
Hello.
Paul. Good to see you. It's like an Arden love in this. Hey, Afi.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
And Amy is with us as well and hiding right now. There you are. Good to see you, Amy. So I'm going to make a start. I'm expecting a few more people, so they may trickle in, but it's great to have you guys here. I am recording the session, and I'll talk a little bit more about the recording in a moment and give you guys the option of opting out of being visible in the recording. But I'm going to make a start and just make a few requests of you guys before we get started. So my first request is that if you are here, that you stay to the end. So it's a 90-minute workshop. We may finish a little shy of the 90 minutes. And the reason I ask that is because to get the full value out of everything that I'm going to share, it will benefit you to be here and commit to the full session. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, good stuff. The other thing I'm going to ask of you is that you are coachable today. So what do I mean by coachable? Imagine that you were choosing an outfit to wear to a wedding and we were shopping together and I held up a jacket and said, how about this one? And you were thinking, I really don't think that one's going to work on me. Being coachable would be you try the jacket on. You don't close yourself down to it. You give it a chance, and then you confirm to yourself, okay, yeah, this doesn't work for me. So I'm going to ask you to be coachable in the sense that you try on the jacket. You might go with things that feel a little uncomfortable or stretch you a little way out of your comfort zone and are open to that process. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, good stuff. And the final thing I want to ask of you all, given that this is a workshop about career success, is that you show up as a leader. And what I mean by that is that you show up fully present here for the people that you're in this workshop with. Hi, Amy, lovely to have you here. I'm just running through a few ground rules, staying to the end, being coachable. And my final request is that people show up as a leader. So being present with the people around you, leaning into the discussion and whatever the discussion brings up, and care about yourself and the value you bring to this and the value you take from this workshop. Listen and focus. And really, to get the most value, I'm going to ask that you turn off other distractions. So turn off your email so that pings aren't coming up. Put your phone on flight mode or on silent so that you can be wholly in this moment for the next 90 minutes. Because if you do that, we're going to do some really good work. We're going to explore some really good stuff. Is everyone okay with that? Is everyone with me? I'm just going to switch to gallery view so I can see you all more clearly. Welcome, Maria. So let me just talk about recording. So I'm recording this session. And my intention is that I may take snippets of this session and make it publicly available to other people. Now, I want you to know that if any of you aren't comfortable with that, drop me a note afterwards and I will edit out or not use anything that you are in. And I'd like you to consider being willing to have any video that you are in shared. So there's no pressure around that, but think of it like this. If others can benefit from hearing you be coached on some of your career stuff, hearing your stories, then others get to benefit from that. And I'm very passionate about sharing what I have learned and what we can all share about our career journeys and about the breakthroughs that are available to us. So it would be great for me if you are willing to have this whole video shared. And if you aren't, that's okay too. And please just contact me afterwards. Maria, Pua, welcome. It's great to have you here. Maria's just dropped off again. So your willingness to be visible and to have your contribution shared will help others, and it helps you step up as well. Being willing to be visible is a part of creating career success for yourself. So it's also a practice. Treat this as a practice in using your voice, leaning into the discussion, even if it feels a bit uncomfortable at times. And that will really help with your own kind of career success energy. I saw a lovely quote yesterday, and I can't now remember the name of the lady. It was an elderly lady in American Congress. I think she led the High Court. Some of you might be able, is it Ruth Bader someone? And it said, "Speak your truth even if your voice is shaking." And I thought that was a really wonderful quote, because sometimes we don't use our voice because it feels so uncomfortable to use our voice, to step up and to be visible. And actually having the courage to speak, even though it scares us, is such an important thing for us to do within our professional lives, within our personal lives, within our lives in general. So please lean in, participate, use your voice. Now, so that's kind of that's the setup. Can I just ask for a quick show of hands? You're all on one screen, which is great because you can use real hands rather than digital hands. Hands up if you know me and have worked with me directly before. Yay, several of you. Thank you for being here. It's lovely to have you and have some familiar faces. Hands up if you've interacted with some of my content or had some kind of less direct interaction with me previously. Great. And hands up if you're completely new to me and haven't met me before. Well, Amy, thank you. I want to congratulate you for having the courage to show up to a bit of an unknown quantity, and I will do my best to make you feel comfortable and get lots of value out of the session today. So let's just start. Let's use the chat box a little bit. Can everyone just put a word or a sentence into the chat box to tell me how you are feeling right now? Excited. Any advances on excited? I can see thoughtful faces. Wondering. Very good. Thanks, Christina. Looking forward to learning. Good stuff. Amy. Okay, ready to take on some new ideas. Good stuff. So I'm going to invite you, intrigued. Okay, so let me come to Christina first, and then Amy Taylor, I'm going to come to you. Christina, tell me, what are you wondering about? Unmute yourself.
Just wondering what today's session is about, wondering what I'm going to get out of it. And then just wondering about everything in general, like life at the moment, what's happening with lockdown, what's happening with work. And I'm just constantly finding myself not wondering what's next, what am I going to do next, what's going to happen next. So like on a minute to minute level, kind of like, what's going to happen. And then on like a bigger scale as well, in terms of where I am in my career, in terms of what's happening within society. So I'm always in a constant state of like, I'm wondering what's going on, basically.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. That's really good. So there's something about the microcosmic right now within this workshop, and then the macro stuff about the world, your career, life as we know it. So I'd like to offer you a thought, and it's as true for this workshop as it is for life in general. in terms of what you might get from this workshop, that will be wholly defined by what you bring to it. So I'm going to invite you all in a moment to reflect on what you would love this workshop to represent for you in terms of a turning point in your career. So don't do that yet. We will come on to that. But what I want to offer you, Christina, is that is also true of the broader landscape around us. We often wait and wonder what will be. And one of the things I've learned, one of the keys to success, is realizing we have a lot more within our control. We can influence a lot more than we often give ourselves credit for. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But consider this. You can influence all sorts of things if you have courage to feel uncomfortable. Because to have the conversations, to take the actions that put things within your sphere of influence and control often requires us to feel uncomfortable, to stretch ourselves. Because isn't it a truth that if we do the same things that we've always done, we are likely to create the same outcomes that we've always experienced? Whereas if we are open and willing to doing something different, and doing something different usually requires us to stretch ourselves a bit, and that can feel a little uncomfortable, we can create change. We can create different outcomes. So if we bring intention to that, we can achieve a whole lot more. Does that make sense? Amy Taylor, let me come to you. You feel intrigued. Tell me what you're intrigued about.
Yeah, so I've never done coaching before. It's something that's often mentioned, but never really fully understood sort of what it is and how to access it. And yeah, just sort of scrolling through LinkedIn as you do and stumbled across this. And balance in work life and personal life is something that I've always really struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really good at saying no, and so I just often sort of seem to attract additional things to do, and you just think, oh, I've just got to get it all done. But finding that balance, particularly working at home and through the last sort of 18 months, it's become harder to find that balance. And yeah, so I suppose I've really sort of struggled to put into place anything that I've read about, or it's sort of been more sort of independent individual learning or reading of things. So yeah, just intrigued about how coaching is different, and how, yeah, as you've said, we can learn from each other and each other's experiences.
Okay, thanks, Amy, for sharing that. And after today's group session, I'd invite you to have a one-to-one call with me. I'll put a link at the end of this, and I'll give you a full one-to-one coaching experience so that you understand more about how it works and what you can get from it. But today, everyone has the opportunity to experience a bit of coaching within this group environment on their career, if you're ready and open to lean into it. And I'm just going to check, because most of you are on video. Pooja, are you there? Are you with us? And are you?
Hi, Victoria. I am. The only reason I'm on mute and off video is because I'm driving. So I'm and I didn't want to miss the start. So I've like literally dialed in while driving.
Okay.
I will go on video as soon as I hit home.
Perfect. Well, it's great to have you here, and it's good to know that you are here in body. And when we can see you on video, great.
And I was desperately trying to raise my hand when you said who's new, and I know Amy did. So hi, Amy. You have another one there with you. I'm new to this whole kind of setup, new to Victoria, so I'm new one as well. Didn't have an opportunity to say it then, but saying it now, Victoria, new here.
lovely to have you. And again, thank you for your courage in joining something that represents a bit of an unknown quantity. I'm sure we'll be able to deliver you some value as well. Feel free to raise your digital hand if you have something to share or want to talk, but please be careful if you are driving whilst doing that.
Thank you.
Multitasking.
Thank you.
Okay, so Amy, you mentioned struggling a little bit with balance, which is the other key topic for the workshop today. And so let me also share a concept that is absolutely key to creating a successful career and doing so without suffering overwhelm. And it's the art of creating healthy boundaries. And a part of that is the ability to say no. But it's about learning how to say no from a place of confidence and constructiveness. And it's really important. Now, I work with many clients who struggle with saying no. This is something many of us who are committed to our careers, who are ambitious, who enjoy our work, we often take on more and more because we love it and we want to be useful and valued and do good work. But here's the thing. If you say yes to too much, firstly, you can't deliver everything to the best of your ability. Secondly, and I see this a lot, you eventually crumble. And that's when we get problems like burnout or people going over or needing sick leave or failing to realize their potential. Ironically, out of a desire to be the best, to prove our worth, to be great at what we do and to show such commitment and passion for our careers, we fail to set those boundaries. And in doing so, struggle to be at our best. So learning the art of setting healthy boundaries is absolutely critical to having a successful career with or without balance in a way. Like the balance is a consequence of creating healthy boundaries, but you cannot have a sustainably successful career if you are not setting healthy boundaries around yourself. So that's another theme that we will return to. Pooja, your hand is up. What would you like to share?
So personal experience on this very topic. One of the other things, in addition to what you said, Victoria, was, and this is a personal experience, is I thought I was doing a lot in kind of taking on, kind of, being seen as someone who's running multiple projects, multiple teams, and all of that. And I think the feedback that came was, do you lack focus? And I thought that left me quite disappointed and shattered, which wasn't lack of focus. I think it was showing the capacity to lead teams and kind of be multi-focused, flexible, and all of those good things. And I genuinely think it was that. Now, whether it was political influence, whether it was, I don't know what it was, but that could be one potential, I don't know, calling it side effect for better word.
So the downside of sometimes taking so much on is that then if someone is seeking to find fault or give some feedback, there could be this perception of jack of all trades, drift in focus, too many things, not enough depth. So boundary setting as a concept, that is key. And depending on where you are in your career and depending on your confidence level and your relationship with your boss, saying no can feel like a difficult thing to do. Maybe because you're really enthusiastic and want to be seen as, the eager beaver, willing to help with anything, or maybe because you're scared that if you say no, you'll somehow be punished, or the company will hold you back. So there's something about the art of saying no. And there are some dimensions to how we can manage those conversations that are learnable, that are a skill. So how to manage those kind of influence conversations. And I guess the principle, and you may well have heard this before, is it's like on the aeroplane, putting your own oxygen mask on first. If you take on so much that you struggle to be at your best, then eventually you will start letting people down. You won't be able to maintain that level of productivity and capability in spite of the best of your intentions, because over time you will wear yourself out and wear yourself down. And what I learned in my career in leadership was that adopting lifestyle habits that kept me at my best, in my best energy space, were absolutely critical to being able to show up and carry my responsibilities, which at the peak of my career were substantial. Coping with that required me to be well rested, healthy, grounded, and present. And if I had said yes to everything, and there were always more opportunities than I had capacity, I could not have managed myself to show up and support others and be at my best. And it took me many years to crack that. So earlier in my leadership career, in my kind of first forays into management and leadership, I was super passionate and I wanted to be everywhere and I was ambitious. So I took lots on, I looked for visibility, and I didn't manage myself brilliantly. So if I was proudly sharing something that I'd worked really hard on and someone offered me some feedback, I would have a reaction. Now, I was professional, right? So I wouldn't shout or cry, but I might feel myself on the brink of tears, or I might defend or over explain and justify why I had done this the way I had done it. And it didn't always serve me. And it might be because I was up until midnight the night before, you know, putting everything I had into this thing, that then I felt a bit crushed. It felt kind of personal and hard when I got feedback. What I learned to do over time was moderate my responses, moderate my reactions, so that when something happened, when an event occurred which I found a bit triggering, whether it was some critical feedback or something not going my way or needing to say no to something, I learned to ground myself and take a moment, so that rather than reacting, I turned inward and noticed and brought curiosity. What's going on with me? All inwardly, all in a matter of moments. And I got to choose, how am I going to respond? What response is going to serve me best here? And that served me both in terms of how I showed up as an employee, as a professional, as a leader of people. And it served me when I needed to manage difficult interactions, like saying no to something, like explaining that I would need to deprioritize project A because I'd been asked to become involved in project B and there weren't enough hours to do both. And I have kids and I had responsibilities at home, and where earlier on in my career I might just have juggled it all at some personal cost. Perhaps perhaps in my case, the motivation of having a young family to get home to helped me learn the art of managing those boundaries more effectively. So tell me, what are you guys getting from this so far? Would anyone like to share what you're hearing and what you're finding useful in what we've talked about so far? Real hands, digital hands, either is welcome. Paul, fire away.
I think you've touched on some really great points about striking the balance and learning to say no. I think a lot of people can relate that, particularly when you're in work, it is hard to say no because you could be seen to be not delivering. And I certainly, over the course of the last year in the pandemic, probably said yes far more than I was able to, and then developed unhealthy habits because I was working longer hours and not getting the balance. So I think that's really resonated. And the theme on courage and having that courage to be uncomfortable and say no and explain why that is.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to share what they're getting so far from this? Christina.
Again, I think it's really just following on from what Paul was saying around that setting boundaries and being able to say no, which I think I was able to grasp and get better at doing. But by the time I got to that point, I'd already burned out.
Right.
So it was a case of, feeling myself burning out, but then not wanting to disappoint the team and not wanting to disappoint the people that are relying on you because you're responsible for delivering projects. And then realize, well, actually, no, I need to push back and maybe say no to this, and I can't do that. But then just hearing, I think a lot of the phrases that you're saying about reflecting and having courage, your lifestyle habits, these are things that you might see in quotes and I read about, but I've not actually heard someone say. So like listening to you actually speak about them and hearing everybody else speaking, it's like, this is real and this is how, it just makes it more real rather than it being just something you read on a piece of paper. So I'm finding it more useful to actually hear people talking about their experiences and sharing them.
Good stuff. Thanks, Christina. Yeah, Afi.
Thank you very much. I'm going to add to what Christina said and what everyone else has been speaking about with regard to saying no. I definitely agree that it is an art. You need to know how to say no, because saying no the wrong way would definitely send the wrong signal. And I believe in anyone's time within the company, there is a time when you need to prove yourself. I mean, in every company, there is what they call probation period. Usually during that time, it can be challenging for you to try to strike that, life, work-life balance, because you need to almost prove yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens that by the time you're now in a comfortable place where you could easily use your nose, it can be a little bit too late. But I believe from my personal experience, it was a matter of really justifying my place in the organization. And once that was certified, not necessarily through the probation period, but through the outcome of the work that I was, delivering, then I had this credit that allowed me to be a little bit more selective on what I could do and what I wouldn't be able to do, but always use the fact that I'd love to do anything I do to the maximum, to my full potential. So I was using those factors to basically say no. But it's definitely something I should again learn to master, because I think I could say no earlier than I usually do. So thank you.
So what I'm hearing, Afi, if you're open to just exploring this a little bit further, is that when you're new into a role or into an organization, I'm hearing that your belief system is that you have to build up credits in yeses before you've earned the right to create the healthy boundary in the constructive no's.
That's exactly how I see it. It's my belief system, because for every company, you know, taking on a new staff member is almost a gamble. You don't know who the person is. What happened to be on a CV might not equate necessarily to what they're able to do. And so there's this gamble that it's always giving the employer a chance to redeem himself or herself within that probation period. So I believe you have to build these credits. Yeah, definitely. That's my belief. Before earning the right to say no.
So Afi, are you open to the possibility that that belief is just a story you tell yourself?
Definitely. And like I said earlier on, I'm looking forward to learning. I know that each time I engage with any of your material or with yourself, there was something to be learned. So I'm definitely open to learning.
Okay. So let me ask each of you to grab your pens and papers. Oh, before we do, Pooja, sorry, you've got your hand up. Let's hear from you.
Question.
Sure.
What part does confidence and self-belief play in kind of, you know, saying no? Where there's confidence, we call it self-belief. We can give it any name, right? Because I think, for me at least, and you know, it may not be true for others, but I think the place where I feel confident and in charge and on top of things, I find it easy. And where I feel that I'm being evaluated and I have eyes on me, and where I haven't yet earned the stripes or the you know, brownie points, or I don't have that influence, or our personalities don't match, which is the current case with me right now, I feel quite powerless.
Okay. I hear you and I understand. And what I just caught in what you said, Pooja, is that there is a misalignment right now between you and your employer, your boss?
Correct.
Okay. So I have a sign behind me on the wall. You may or may not be able to read it. It says energy plus alignment equals success. If we are in an environment where we are not aligned with ourselves, with our integrity, with our values, in the gap between who we really are, what matters to us, and the way we are having to behave or feeling that we have to behave in order to conform to an environment or a set of expectations, in that gap is where confidence and self-esteem and success are lost. Does that make sense to everyone?
I mean, yes, it does. And I think that's exactly the place where I am right now, because I have refused to change my personality to suit what works for the environment or the subset of the larger environment. And I say subset because it's you know, the team that I'm a part of.
Yeah,
I refused to kind of totally mold myself. And I'm not saying I'm not adaptable or anything like that, but you know, just if I'm a modest person, I'm a modest person, right? I'm not going to make myself flamboyant to suit an environment. That's just an example, right? And it has cost me success.
okay.
And that's okay. But I just need to be in a place which will value my values.
So another thing I have learned is that that needn't mean that your organization or employer is wrong. And it certainly doesn't mean that you are wrong. But if we are trying to succeed in an environment that we are misaligned to, it is very difficult. And usually we end up long-term unhappy and crushed and not realizing our full potential, or we make a choice to go. But staying for the long term out of alignment with yourself, and I know that you know this, Pooja, it's harmful, it's detrimental, and you have a choice. And to answer your original question, what role does confidence and self-esteem play? For me, this speaks back to where Afi's coming from. I've got to prove myself when I am first taken on in a new role or by a new company. Imagine if you knew with unshakable confidence that you were exactly the right person, in exactly the right place, in full alignment, and perfectly capable of excelling. How would that shift this need to prove myself by saying yes to everything? Afi?
Well, I believe again, for me, England being a completely new experience, you know, from a culture perspective and a few other things. One thing I did learn is what I'd like to, pardon my French, call bullshitting. Okay, pardon my French, where people would be ready to say just about anything in order to get by, and it's something that is foreign to my belief. So if I apply for a job, I actually believe that I could deliver it. I actually believe that I could do it. But you see, out of sometimes ignorance, or out of I don't know, the refusal to understand or appreciate, you do have organizations, and I'm going to narrow this down to people within organizations who, who just see your cultural background and doubt that you should be there. It's been my case. Doubt that you should be there, and so you happen, and I'm talking about me now. You happen to have to work twice as much as others in order to just get to the normal level of guys, I'm earning what I'm earning out of what we all know that I'm capable of doing. You have to work twice as much sometimes. And worse yet, when you join an organization where you out of your own values, appreciate what a vision is, understand what they're meant to be doing, and where there is a culture where people almost overlook the purpose of the company, how things should be done. I'm going to illustrate that a little bit by saying, let's say we have a culture, or we have a vision of providing the very best to the customer. And that is irrespective of what sort of industry we're talking about. So when I find myself within a work environment where people genuinely are not interested in giving the very best to the customer, I could be seen not to be a team player, okay? Because I believe that I joined in order to give the very best to the customer. And if everyone else is not doing it, I'm not going to align to that, because it's not what I stand for. And this is where I agree with what you said, that when there's no alignment between yourself and the company, it is a really good time for you to exit, otherwise you will suffer the consequences. And, as you promise someone, it might be a chat for another time where I could fully explain
I mean, it
how.
sounds like there's a lot in here, Rafi, so I think we should have a conversation.
Yes.
And also, let's just talk about this, because I think lots of people will probably experience this. I know I have experienced this, where there's an organizational value system and I don't feel like people pay any attention to it. And I bought into it, and that's why I'm here, and someone else is ignoring it. Now, one person alone cannot change an organizational culture, not even the deputy CEO. And all of us have an opportunity to influence it. And even when we are new, and irrespective of our place in the organization, if we are willing to find the courage to raise an issue and courageously discuss it, it can have a profound effect on the environment around us. Now, most of us don't do that, because for most of us, the thought of seeking an audience with the faculty director or our boss, or even just the person that's creating toxic energy that works in the team next door to us, the thought of that conversation is too uncomfortable. And I want to put to you that the reason that conversation feels so uncomfortable is more to do with our fear of how we will show up than what the other person might say to us. It's the fact that we know our voice will wobble and we'll get flustered and we'll lose our words, and we don't really know what we want anyway. We just want it to not feel like this. But imagine if everyone was equipped with the capability to have those difficult, fierce conversations from a place of composure and calm and non-attachment, because we had so much certainty in our personal value. I'll have this conversation. I will strive to effect some change for myself, for the good of the organization I've decided to join, for the good of the people around me and the culture that we work in. And I'll bring curiosity to that. And I might be able to effect some change. And if I can't, I'll take my considerable talents elsewhere, because a probation period is not just an evaluation of you. And I'm talking to you, Afi, but I'm talking to all of you. Our career, our employment is a two-way contract. We offer our talents and our capability and our passion and 35 to 50 or more of our precious hours each week in exchange for a salary and a safe and productive working environment. And that's a two-way deal, people. And if you do not feel safe, and if your environment is having a negative effect on your well-being, or if you're not actually able to offer your considerable talents because blocks are being put in the way, or you feel overly scrutinized, you have a right to bring a conversation. And most of us don't. Because we imagine that this is all out of our control. I need a job, right? I've got to pay the mortgage. I will come to you, Amy. I have no choice in this. It's not true. We always have a choice. And it hides in our language. I have to do this. I've got to pay the mortgage. This has got to happen. You have way more choice than you realize. If you shift your language to, I'm going to do this. I'm choosing to do this. I'm prioritizing this. I'm willing to take this discomfort because it matters to me to keep paying off my car, or, to to keep this house, for example, and it's quite an extreme example, but it's a choice we make. I own 50% of this transaction. We think that our employer has all the cards. Imagine if we knew how valuable we were, truly believed it. All of a sudden it becomes a choice. Am I willing to tolerate this? Or am I going to have a discussion and see what change I can effect? Amy, tell me what came up for you.
Hi, thank you. That's really resonated with me. I think that it is really easy to forget that employment is a two-way street, that you are getting from the company just as much as they're getting from you. I'm actually in a really good position in my role at the moment where I do feel comfortable that I can do my job and I go above and beyond. I feel safe in my team. I feel like I can speak out to my manager and be supported. I feel like my values align with my team's values, and where things don't sit right, that I can speak up about them.
Great.
But I still find myself saying yes to absolutely every opportunity that comes my way. I feel like perhaps my day job is less challenging than it could be, and I could go for a little bit of extra work, a little bit of extra responsibility on my plate, and that's the reason I keep taking on all of these additional projects and additional tasks that don't necessarily sit with me. And it is coming to that position where it's affecting the work-life balance and happiness at home, which I don't think it should. And it's just trying to put my finger on why, when I don't necessarily feel fully challenged, when I do feel like I can take on more work and I do feel safe to say no when needed. I have a feeling it's a little bit personality based as well, and it's trying to control at what point and identify at what point I'm at my limit. That makes sense.
So thank you for sharing that, Amy. Are you open to me just kind of stretching your thinking a little bit and coaching you a little bit on that? So you made reference to personality, and we do have different preferences. If you like variety, there is that tendency to take on more. I'm hearing from you that your day job may not be challenging you. It's well within your capability. And that's leading you to take on additional things.
Yeah, that's what I think at the moment.
For interest?
For interest, for variety, for responsibility, I guess. And sometimes it feels like I'm taking on more because, going back to what Afi was saying earlier, you feel like you need to prove yourself to get a promotion or to get a pay rise or to make that next step, that you have to take on more than what you're contracted to take on.
And I think there is some reality in that, and it should be intentional and structured and time bound in your own mind. Because Amy, let's keep going with your situation. If you continue to take on these additional responsibilities from within the role that you're in, which is well within your capabilities, what will happen eventually if you keep going as you are going now?
I think it would get to the point where it's almost expected. If it's not written down as sort of formally written down somewhere as it is an extra project, rather than just, it's almost informally these extra tasks are given. So I think when it's written down, maybe in one-to-one sessions, and it's formally documented that you are taking on this extra piece for X amount of weeks, months, and that is sort of documented as going above and beyond. I think that is different to when it is informally, oh, I've got this extra project that needs to be done, can you just do that because you've got capacity. It's very, very different. And eventually, if you are taking on lots informally, it's almost expected that you will always take on lots informally. And then you trap yourself, don't you, into a position where you feel like, well, if I say no now, will they not challenge me as to why I hadn't said no when they asked me last month or when they asked me last week?
Sure. So you've nailed it. You're making yourself indispensable where you are at.
Yeah.
And what do you think happens when the promotion opportunities come around if you have become utterly indispensable informally?
Exactly. Yeah,
where
exactly
you are
it.
at?
They can't stand to lose you from where you are currently, and will usually hire in externally or elsewhere in the business.
Yeah, and good old Amy, she'll keep. She's such a good gal. She'll keep doing this stuff.
Taking it on. Yeah, exactly.
Because what often happens is we get lovely feedback. You're doing so well. You're so valued. And then when we find the courage to ask for career progress, perhaps pay increment, we're sort of patted on the head, probably not right now. It's a difficult time in the business. And another really key message I want to offer all of you, and it's also on my wall, as luck would have it, it says the answer is you. So we often think of our careers as being something that our employer manages for us, of our career progress as being something. If I work really hard, eventually someone will spot how good I am and give me the opportunity to take the next step. But often by working really hard, we're making ourselves indispensable in the place that we are in. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second, by the way, that we shouldn't work hard. Working hard is fulfilling. If we feel a sense of purpose, that's great. But there's working hard and then there's working too hard without boundaries. And the answer is us, because we train our employer. We think they train us. We train them. If we start our probation period working 10-hour days, and then they sign us off after 3 months and we all of a sudden drop to 8-hour days, what do you think happens? Affy, we thought he was really good. Now that he's through his probation, he's slacking. What happened to him? He used to be, all over everything. Now he's saying no to stuff. We set expectations with every interaction we have. We train our employer. We train the people around us. We train our husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends. Every interaction we have sets a boundary. It sets an expectation. It says, here is what I am willing to give. Here is what I'm prepared to tolerate. It's so important to bring intention to that. So, Amy, running with your situation, if you are ambitious, you have greater capability than you're currently realizing, and you want to take on more responsibility. Certainly as a leader of people, I would have said, find the bright people willing to take on more and give them the opportunity. And I would expect them to negotiate with me. Yeah, I'm willing to take this on. If I prove myself, does this mean that then I'm on a path? I don't want to do it for 5 years endlessly for no thanks, for no recognition, but I would love the opportunity to step up, to take on more. And depending on your environment, if you're in a small entrepreneurial environment, then often the deal can be, right, you do it for 3 months, and if you do it well, we'll promote you. That's a permanent additional responsibility. If you're in a more structured environment where it's harder to kind of make new roles happen, then the deal is you get an evidence piece that says, I'm able to demonstrate that I have this capability. And you have an open discussion about your future ambitions. Marshall Goldsmith, who is a top leadership coach, speaks about a particular trait that hold women back in business. Now, I want to say it won't just be women, but he he did a load of work with senior executives in the 80s and 90s, and they were all men. And then he kind of had a guilty realization and wrote another book that was about women in leadership because they were starting to emerge in the 90s and noughties. But he talks about people failing to signal their ambition. And some profiles of people, women is an example, but it's very broad, find it harder to signal their ambition than others. Because we feel a bit like, oh, it's arrogant to say that I'm ready for the next step, or I don't like the idea of tooting my own horn and saying I should be there. And so no one knows. And they say, good old Amy, she's such a workhorse. She loves her job. She loves her team. You've just told me you love it. Why would I think that you are seeking more? Because what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing is you're really happy in the role that you're in, and you love taking on all this variety and new responsibilities. So having a conversation, signaling what we are capable of and what our ambitions are. I'll tell you a story about myself. I had 3 really significant promotions within my career over the course of my career. I had others, but I had 3 really sizable ones. In every instance, no, in 2 out of 3, the role I was promoted to didn't exist until I created it and pitched it to my employer. And for those of you that know me from Arden, that includes the Deputy Chief Executive role at Arden. I knew I could do more for that organisation. I was working so far within my capabilities. And I was working in volume terms more than I needed to, because I had this hankering to do more. And it was actually only by broadening my responsibilities and building the team around me that ultimately went on to take the uni forward that I got a grip on my workload, because I didn't need to scratch that itch anymore. Does that make sense? When I wasn't realizing my full potential, I kind of wanted more. So I was always looking for more. It was only when I got to the place where I was able to be at my best potential and realize my full capability, I kind of relaxed. I was cognitively stimulated sufficiently. I was where I was meant to be. And the same happened to me at the post office back in the day. I was in a role, I didn't have clear focus. I knew I could do more and I was ambitious, but there wasn't an obvious next step for me. And I learned back then a tool that has served me really well throughout my career since, which is, it's a basic principle I'll share with you. I did a list of all of my skills and capabilities, the stuff I'm brilliant at. And then I used my best knowledge to work out where the gaps were in the organisation. Things that, and this is the post office, right? Big structured organisation, but it had stuff that it wasn't doing very well that needed leadership. And I put those 2 things together. Stuff I'm brilliant at, stuff you need. And I created a role. And I sought an audience with the most senior person I could bag. And I shared with them my observations and some of my skills and experience. And I said, I'd love the opportunity to solve these problems for you. And what would he have been, the director of the function said, yeah, I see that. Go make it happen. And that was how I got my first really big career vertical, to create a brand team for the post office. And since then, I've learned other important skills in having those kinds of conversations. And by the way, my voice did wobble and it was uncomfortable. And I had half said to myself, if this doesn't come off, I'm out. I can't keep treading water like this. And that gave me a certain devil-may-dare confidence, even though my voice still wobbled, because I was still nervous. It was a scary thing to do. The other thing I've learned is how to speak the language of the business. So when we are seeking pay rise or promotion, or maybe even pitching ourselves for a role or a job, and to be honest, this would even serve you, you know, if you also have freelance offerings that you have or are considering going into business, what I'm about to share with you is so valuable when you are having any interaction with a business decision maker. There are 4 pillars of value that you can think in terms of. And this is as true whether you are asking for a pay rise and justifying it, creating a role, a step up for yourself, pitching your services to another business. There are 4 pillars of value. Will it make money? Will me taking on this additional responsibility make money for this business? Will it save money? Does giving me this additional responsibility enable me to make changes that will be efficient for this business and save it money? Will it mitigate risk? That's what it was at the post office. I could see that there were different things happening that were not glued together very well. And the fact that it looked one way over here and a different way over here was creating inefficiency, but it was also introducing risk in terms of public reputation. And I knew that that was a serious risk that people would not be happy about once I drew their attention to it. And the 4th is there a pet project here? Is there an ambition in your stakeholder, something they want to get done that doesn't get done and they really want to get done and it isn't getting done? That's your 4th pillar of value. And if you can leverage at least one and preferably more of those pillars of value, it's so much more difficult to turn you down. And sometimes there are multiple decision makers when you are seeking progression within your career or creating a new opportunity for yourself. And you have to suss out, what is their agenda? Which of those pillars of value is going to tune them in? And you might have to think carefully about how you position whatever it is that you are seeking to achieve. And at the worst, you will learn something valuable that will serve you. Maybe you'll get a piece of feedback about a development that you need to take on. And maybe that will sting a little, or if you've done your own work and been really honest with yourself, maybe you'll take that on and work with it, or bring curiosity, or bring negotiation. Okay, I'm going to build this capability. How can you support me in building it? And in 4 months, when I've demonstrated to you that I've closed that gap, I'd like to have this conversation again. So there's a lot in that. I can't even remember where we started. What's everyone getting from it? Can anyone share the kind of key insight that's come out for them out of the little section we've just talked about? Afi.
Sorry, I have a little one in the
Small
background.
person, I hear.
Okay. What I'm getting from what you're saying is that often it is on us to build or to create our own opportunities within the company. We need to understand that they're in for business, so they have some fears, some risks. Ultimately, they want to either generate money or save money. So if there is any gap within the company or the organization that we feel we could lean on to attract their attention towards us in terms of the things that we could provide them with, then it could be our way out to doing something we really enjoy within that company. So the 4 pillars.
Good
That's
stuff.
fine.
Thanks, Afi. Anyone else? Amy T.
I was just going to say that the thing really that I'm sort of taking from that is self-awareness of what your skills are, what you bring, and having the confidence to say, yeah, I do bring that, and that is unique, and being able to identify what your skills are against either what you're delivering or what an organisation needs. I think, yeah, that's sort of the starting point for me. I think that self-awareness of actually knowing what you have, but also what you want, and therefore where you want to go with that is yeah, as I say, something that's going to be a starting point for me.
Excellent. And you're absolutely right. Self-awareness, absolutely key. Christina.
It's just following on from what Amy said about self-awareness, and when you were talking, and I mean for like the last 5-10 minutes, the areas we've been discussing and going over, I was thinking, I've done that. I've in the organisation that I've bought in the 4 pillars, I've set on many projects, and what I realised what I wasn't doing was that self-awareness, that reflection, to say, actually, I can do this, because you sometimes just on the treadmill and you're going so fast, you don't sit back and take stock of, actually, these are the skills that I have, and then you just kind of keep going without stopping and taking stock. So looking at what you've discussed now, I'm thinking, well, actually, I can do all of this. I have got that skill set. I've proven it already. And going back to the very first thing you said at the start of the session, now it's just about courage.
Yeah.
And I'm reflecting and then having the courage now to step forward into the ideas that I have and the career path that I want to make for myself. And I'm already feeling a bit like, okay, getting excited about it. So yeah, thank you.
Good for you. And the courage piece is interesting, right? Because we sometimes think, oh, I'll work on my confidence and then I'll have that conversation when I'm feeling really confident. Let me tell you, the conversation comes first. We think, when I'm feeling brave, when I've built my confidence, then I'll have that conversation. It's in having the conversation that we build the courage and confidence. So I don't know whether you guys have come across the concept of comfort zone, stretch zone. There is a panic zone, best avoided. But we often stay in our comfort zone, and sometimes our comfort zone is quite uncomfortable, like we're not entirely happy and fulfilled there, but it feels safe. But we can never really stay still. We are either growing and developing, or we're kind of shrinking. And in order to keep growing and developing, we have to flex that muscle of stretching ourselves. And by doing things that require us to bring courage, we grow that comfort zone, because things that used to stretch us become a part of our comfort zone. If you think of something that used to make you nervous, or that you used to feel a bit reluctant or aversive around, but for whatever reason you made it your business to do it. Running would be a great example for me. I was an obese child, and I didn't take up running until I was about 37 and had had my 3 kids. And it was gruesome, absolutely gruesome. But I really wanted to do it. I got into parkrun and I loved the vibe of it, but it was such an ordeal physically. And I kept doing it. And lo and behold, I went from 38 minutes to 36 minutes to 34 minutes to 32 minutes for my parkrun. And I became someone who can do that. And it didn't just change my capability, it changed my identity. I stopped identifying as the fat kid that lost weight and started identifying as a lady who runs. Yeah, I do parkrun. It kind of became who I am. So think about, well, how would you like to show up in your career? How would it feel to be that person that can, with composure and tact, bring difficult conversations, speak your mind, own your space, say those things that need to be said? How would that change things for you? Pooja?
I'm actually getting into a conversation at 2:30 today.
Okay. Tell us more.
I've been planning to have this conversation for 5 weeks now. And I've pushed it back because sometimes it was not the right moment. Sometimes, do you know what, that person has something more important to do. Sometimes because, oh, she was not well, so let me give her some breathing space. And I realized that I was trying to push it, to procrastinate, because I was scared to have that conversation, because I might lose what I have right now. And last few days, I've had a conversation with myself to say, it's okay. It's okay to have the conversation. And even if that means that I'm not going to be a part of this project, I'm fine with it. But I need to have that conversation because it's chipping away at lots of things from within. And I need to have that conversation, absolutely. You know, so keep me in your thoughts at 2:30. But
we will keep you in our thoughts, Pooja. And you mentioned something there that is another really helpful principle, because what I heard you say is, I've resigned myself to the fact that whatever the outcome, I need to have the conversation.
Sorry, it's 2:00, not 2:30. It's 2:00.
2:00. Okay,
Yeah,
that's okay. We'll finish on time.
I don't know what time you plan to finish, but
I'll be finished at 2.
Okay.
At 2.
But
And
yeah, I mean, that I was thinking about it from a courage point of view. So I haven't done this before, but I want to do it now.
Yeah.
And not always kind of have a net at the back that if I fall, what will happen? It's okay.
Yeah.
If I fall, right, I will get something else, and that's okay.
So that's the principle of non-attachment and faith in yourself. And you asked the question earlier about self-esteem and confidence. Imagine how freely you would conduct yourself professionally if you had absolute faith that whatever happens, I can handle this.
Yeah.
I am good. I know my shit. If I have this conversation and the outcome isn't the one I hoped for, I will take my considerable talents and use them in a way that represents value. Maybe I'll take another job, maybe I'll work for myself, but it's a choice for me to be here.
Yeah, and in a way, this session has kind of helped kind of further strengthen my thought and belief that I've been trying to muster for days now. And you asked earlier on, what are you trying to get out of the session? And I was driving, so I couldn't speak then. The word that came to mind at that point in time, the liberty, or I don't know if liberty is the right word, or the be unchained and have the freedom to not feel, am I using the right language? Am I using the right words? Am I coming across in the way I'm speaking like the people who are listening to me? Because I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
You know, that it's just, if I close my eyes, the visual is that I'm chained in my feet. I want that gone. And just, it's okay. Just kind of say it's me. Here I am. This is who I am. Right? Take it or leave it. Up to you. Oh God.
Anyone else get tingles from that? And it reminds me a bit of what Afi said at the beginning. Like, I feel like I have to be a certain way, pretend to be like them to prove that I've got a right to be here. What if that hasn't actually been serving you? What if you were unashamedly, confidently your whole self? And it starts at interview, Because if you've painted a picture like this at interview or during your probation, and then you're thinking, I'll let them know who I really am further down the line, that can create some problems. If you are wholly and unashamedly your authentic self, there's such strength in that. And sometimes you won't be in alignment in the place that you're at. And that gets to be a choice for you. And sometimes you're absolutely in alignment, but you didn't know it because you were trying to be like someone else. And when we wear that mask, when we present that other version of ourselves that isn't really who we are and what we're about, other people can vibe it. They don't know quite what's wrong. All they know is that they're not fully connected to us. And people feel that energy, and it actually doesn't serve us. Now, at the same time that they are vibing, knowing that something's not quite right here, maybe I don't fully trust this person, I don't quite get them, because we're creating this sort of muddled version of ourselves that we're trying to present. At the same time, we're carrying fear of exposure. Am I saying it right? God, what if they figure out who I really am? What if they find the real me? You know, that overthinking, you made reference to it, Pooja, that kind of thinking, am I speaking right? Am I using the right language? Am I doing stuff? And so our whole physiology, our whole energy space is made less stable and composed by the fact that instead of just doing our thing, we're doing a bit of our thing and doing a bit too much of it because we think we've got to prove ourselves, and trying to overthink, am I doing it right? And trying to hide who we really are. Can you see the complexity that we build in and the energy it takes? Can you see how it holds us back?
Somewhere inside hoping that I actually want them to find out who I really am.
And like me, and tell me I'm good. Yeah.
Funny, right? It's complex.
It is complex. And you can change it. You can step into your whole self. You can even say, I've been trying so hard to fit in here, to prove that I'm the right fit. I'm realizing actually, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm capable of. I'm going to show up slightly differently from now on. I hope that you'll like it, but let's chat again in a few months. You get to choose. So, everyone grab your pen and your piece of paper. And I just want you to write down for yourself, if today could be the real turning point in your career, what's the breakthrough you need to create for yourself? If today is the day you open the door on that breakthrough, what breakthrough do you need to have? And it's something within you. It's something you control. What is stopping you have what you want? Now we've got 10 minutes to go, and I want to hear from all of you before we wrap up with what's come up for you. But before we do, can I have a show of hands of everyone who's got some value out of the session today? And keep your hand up if you'd like to explore a little bit more deeply, if you'd like to go a bit deeper into some of the stuff that we've talked about. Okay, so if your hand is up right now, I'm going to type a little link into the chat box. All of you that have your hand up, book a call with me. We will spend an hour exploring this stuff in more detail, looking at your specific circumstances and whatever you've just written down in terms of the breakthrough you want to have. We'll do a bit of a deep dive on. How does that sound to everyone? Okay, good stuff. So book a link. I know that in the next week there's not much availability, but in the week following there should be good availability. And it'll be lovely to dive a bit deeper with all of you. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity. Now, let's hear from everyone. What has been your biggest insight and what have you written down about the breakthrough you want to create for yourself? Who's happy to kick us off? Pooja.
So I've written two things, actually not one, so I've kind of deviated a little bit there.
That's allowed.
I think for me, the biggest thing is celebrate myself. Good. Because I think I'm quite harsh on myself, and expectations are very, very high, which is fine. But I don't celebrate the small things. I don't celebrate myself. I don't celebrate small things I do. I don't, which means that I have to keep doing more, kind of keep going. And the second thing is accept myself more, which will automatically lead me to kind of unchain myself. For me, that is the biggest thing at this point in time, the confidence, because I think that's what's holding me back. I have everything else and more than what people have around me, the substance, the metal. You know what? I can beat people hands down. And that's what's holding me back. So for me, that's the biggest thing.
Okay. Make sure you book a call with me. That is my specialty area. That self-confidence is a biggie. And yes, you said something that I want to share with everyone. It reminded me of another really useful principle. The way we speak to ourselves inside, the way we treat ourselves, the way we value ourselves, invest in ourselves, develop ourselves, that creates an energy that is reflected back at us. So if we are not speaking kindly to ourselves, if we are not valuing ourselves, if we are not prioritizing our own development, we will not receive that positive energy and priority of development from our employer, from the people around us. The answer is you, me. The energy we create within ourselves dictates the energy that flows towards us. Best of luck with your conversation shortly, Pooja, and we'll carry on. Nice to meet you.
I will quietly drop off in some time, but I just do want to hear and stay for as long as I can.
That makes sense. And make sure you click your link so you have that open, because when I close the Zoom call, of course, the link will go as well. Yeah, great. Who else would like to share key insight and breakthrough you're creating for yourself? Amy Taylor.
I think the thing that's really resonated the most with me is if you do the same things, nothing will change. And I think reflecting, I've been way too passive in my own development and where I want my career to go, sort of just waiting for those opportunities to arise rather than finding them.
Yeah.
And so I suppose my breakthrough really is sort of more belief in myself and actually giving myself sort of the permission really to say, these are my strengths, this is what I'm good at, and really understanding those so that you can go out and you can look for opportunities and really know what it is that you're looking for, rather than that passive sort of waiting. Something will come up and I'll go for that, and it's drawing that path for myself and being more proactive and owning my own timeline, as it were.
Yeah, owning your own career progress. Good stuff. Well done. Amy.
So mine's very similar to Amy, actually, along the same lines, that sort of the key thing that has come out of this for me is that, you know, if you keep taking on more, you're going to be expected to take on more, and nothing will change. You know, you won't make people aware of what you want if you don't tell them.
Yeah.
So my breakthrough would be to find the power and confidence to stop masking what I'm doing, to stop just taking everything on informally, and actually speak up about what my ambitions are, what I want for the next step, what I want for my career, and to also be able to say no to things at the same time. So, you know, trying to prove myself that I'm ready for that next step doesn't necessarily mean I have to take on every single little task that gets thrown my way. It's actually just having that confidence to say what you want, and to say that you are not being challenged currently, and what you can bring to the company, and what you can sort of add, where you can add value for them. So that's what I've got down for my breakthrough.
Good stuff. I feel like I'm going to have to do a whole separate workshop on the art of saying no well. So watch this space. I'll put that together. Who's up next?
I don't mind going next. Yeah. So I actually, interestingly, when I was thinking about the question, I realized just how many career conversations I've actually already had.
Good for you.
And realized that the hardest part for me is perhaps realizing that I might be misaligned and walking away if that's an option. So I know my own skills and values, and I know where I want to grow. But in reality, the opportunities for those seem to be few and far between. So although I've had a number of promotional opportunities, I've fallen at that sort of hurdle stage in the interview where I'm demonstrating to the interviewers that I'm ready for the next step, but I'm not getting over the goalpost. And I suppose it's struggling to understand why that might be.
You mentioned misalignment. Am I hearing that maybe could there be some self-sabotage in there because there's a bit of a
I'd say
gap?
so. Yeah, I think that's something for me to really reflect on. Certainly, I know where I'm going, and I'm broadly understanding where the company's going. It's trying to work out where the fit is.
Okay. Book a call, Paul. I'm happy to soundboard with you and explore that.
Thank you.
And Afi?
Well, for me, there's two things. First of all, the concept of intentionality that you spoke about, so intentionality in action. But at a personal level is really to share with my employer how my own initiative could benefit them more than what they see me for or what they're currently employing me as.
Yeah.
There's much more they could get out of me if only I was willing perhaps to share with them some of my own initiatives and the things that I believe could add value to them. Again,
great. That is exciting. And for those of you where the takeout is there's a conversation or a stepping into courage to be had, let me know how you get on, because sometimes it just creates a pivot in the universe and all of a sudden things start happening. But it'd be great to stay in touch with all of you and follow up and see what you're creating. So that's us done for the workshop. Make sure if you plan to book a call that you've opened the link, because it will disappear when I close the call. I'll stick around for 5 minutes, but thank you all so much for your participation and contribution. And I'm really excited to see where these new insights take you and your career. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.